And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Ken Fibbe, former Korean TV and movie star who's had a spiritual awakening, including an experience where he saw planning his life. Ken, it's great to meet you and have you here as a guest. Welcome.
Jeff, what a pleasure to be on here. I've been a fan of this show ever since the spiritual evolution started.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of the first places I went to, trying to put together all these pieces. And so to be on here is just, I never would have imagined. So it's quite an honor to be here, Jeff. Thanks for having me today.
Well, it's my honor to have you because people need you and people like you to come share their experiences.
Absolutely. And your audience will see it's been quite the journey of all different polar opposites. And at the very end, I'm going to try to list out some things that I've learned along the way throughout my research and my experiences and varying levels of higher states of consciousness, and to try to empower the audience at the very end with things that they can do to expedite their spiritual progress, because there is a fast track that you can take that most people don't know about, and some guardrails you need to have as you go through it. And so I want to help arm your audience with some practicality. I'm a very practical person, and I want to make sure that they leave us with a bit of practical steps that they can take maybe themselves.
Well, that's great. So, Ken, the first thing I want to say is, how did you wind up in Korea?
Man, that is a really good question. I still think back to how did that actually come about? And it was divine orchestration of events that it only could have happened one way. I'll rewind just a little bit of my background that led to that. I'll briefly go through it. I grew up in extreme poverty in a small town in Kentucky. And I always had this thing inside of me, right? I was one of 6 kids, extremely Catholic household, a lot of fear inside of me. And I was a mute for a while. I just didn't want to talk because I didn't want to sin. And there was always this thing inside of me that said, I gotta get out of here. I don't belong here. I don't belong in this small town. I didn't know what that was. I found out later that was a seed from my soul to a part of the evolution, right? And one day I was a news reporter. I was an investigative news reporter in Texas. And I saw that my friend was traveling in Korea and she's traveling the world. And I wrote her and I said, I've seen a lot of traumatic things here as a news reporter, and I don't like this anymore. How are you doing? How are you traveling the world? And she said, oh, I just came over here, took some random odd jobs. I would teach English here, or I would do this over here. Sometimes they would throw me into a movie, whatever it may be. Just come on over here and you can find out yourself. And just like that, I did. I booked a one-way ticket. I left my car, left everything. I went to South Korea with zero plan, started taking random jobs, whether it was teaching English or be like the guy at the local gym that they would take pictures of. And one day I am at a bar. This is back when I used to drink, and I would drink a lot. That was part of my journey. And it's a drinking culture, very drinking culture. This Swedish guy comes up to me at a bar and he says, hey, are you an actor? I said, no, I'm not an actor. No, I don't act. And he goes, it doesn't matter. You don't need any acting experience. There's a movie that's filming. It's a K-pop star's first time doing a movie. You should be the swimming guy that just yells at him. Very easy. And I said, absolutely, I'll do that. So I show up. I do this movie. It's called No Breathing. It was rated as the worst movie of the year. It was horrible acting. But it was easy for me. And then when it was so much fun, the first time I was on set, a small guy from Kentucky, middle of nowhere, is on set with one of the most famous people in Asia, with all these cameras everywhere. And Koreans are very respectful people. Like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Oh, you're so great. You're so great. This is perfect. You're amazing. My ego was blowing up out of control. And I say, I want to do this for the rest of my life. This is an easy choice. And I saw the competition was low. There's a high demand for foreign people to be in their films, to play the doctor, the army guy, whatever. But there just wasn't a lot of demand. And back then there wasn't. And I saw this opportunity. And so I signed with this guy. I was not working for a little while. I was living in a shoebox apartment. And he promised the world and I didn't get the world. But eventually, as the months went on and as I worked and networked and I learned some more Korean, I got a big break starring in a commercial for X-Men Days of Future Past, where I was a stand-in for Michael Fassbender whenever they brought that movie over there. And then that was my big break. Next thing I knew, I was in this movie and then that movie. And then I was on their longest running TV show. It's called NBC Surprise. It's their longest running TV show in Korean history. And I was the main actor on that for years. Just, it's a reenactment show where, like, if the dingo ate my baby story, I'd be the dad that the dingo ate his baby, right? Or it would be a story about this interesting story about the Beatles. I was every one of the Beatles at least twice. Like I was one of the Beatles. Like it didn't matter. The standards were so low, they just threw on some random makeup, right? And eventually it got to the point to where I was in 150 movies, TV shows, commercials, Samsung, LG. It didn't matter. I was in everything. And I had it. My favorite thing was that I had my own kid show, Jeff. I had my own kid show. It's called Action English, and it's still on TV today. Is the most famous live action kid show in South Korea, where I was Mr. Red, there was Mr. Yellow, and there was Mr. Blue, and we would just do hip hop and teach like 3 to 7-year-olds how to learn English. Right? It was like, and my little Pomeranian Korean dog was on the show for the song My Dog Is So Cute. And it was ridiculously so much fun. I could not believe I was getting paid to just dance around and teach English to hundreds of thousands of kids every day. Life was like, it was an actual dream. Remember, small town Kentucky, Heroin County, Kentucky, awful place, to that. I was pinching myself. It was so good. I worked with Liam Neeson.
Wow.
Like the top. And in Asia, here's how, for those in your audience who aren't familiar with just how popular K-pop and K-dramas are, when you go to China, when you go to Taiwan, you go to Japan, they're watching K-dramas. It's the second biggest entertainment industry in the world. A lot of people probably heard of BTS, right? Or Girls' Generation. They're quite famous. Maybe your kids have heard of BTS. Have you heard of BTS?
I've heard of BTS, yes.
Yeah, okay. Now they got famous after I left, but yeah, that was the dream. And now that also came, if I'm being frank, that came with drinking and alcoholism. And because it's a very drinking culture, it also came with a lot of womanizing. It came with whatever you think that life was, it got me. And my ego was out of control, right? It just was. I was a great person, but Jeff, you can probably imagine not having things and suddenly having things, expecting VIP tables at clubs and a wraparound apartment with parties with models. Like you can imagine what that life was like, right? You can he's nodding his head like I can kind of imagine what that was like. But then Jeff, it all came crashing down. And so I was dating this Korean girl, and I broke up with a Korean girl, and she didn't take the breakup well. And so over there, they have Korean law and they have foreigner law. Okay. And she knew that. And so foreigner law is very different. It's extremely different. If you get arrested, you don't get a phone call, you don't get a lawyer. As a matter of fact, just on a hot tip to the police alone, they'll snatch you up and they'll lock you up. And then they have like a 99% confession rate. So does Japan. There's a lot of Asian countries that's just the way it is. And she knew that. So she left a tip to the police that said I was a drug dealer. Not a drug dealer. It was not a drug dealer. And I was on a movie set with Jennifer Eel, who was in Pride and Prejudice. And she was also in Mission Impossible 3, kind of like a character actress. They flew her over for this action movie. And I'm on set with her, and my character is supposed to block the door, right? CIA, let's block the door. And my agent comes out and he says, "Hey, Ken, the police are here." And I said, "I know, I gotta block the door. I get it." And he says, "No, the real police are here. Do you deal drugs in South Korea?" And suddenly, like, my consciousness is shifting and the blood is rushing out of me. Like, this is very real, especially when 5 undercover police detectives show up on set, put handcuffs on me, hold up an iPhone that says in English, "You're under arrest for dealing drugs in South Korea." They tie me up on a rope and they start hitting me.
Wow.
And they put me in the back of an unmarked van. They take me to my hotel room, raid my hotel room. They get more and more angry that they're not finding any drugs. They knew where I lived. They drove me all the way to my apartment. They knew what the code was to get into my apartment. I guess they've been following me for a while, GPS tracking my phone as well. And they were tightening the rope even more, hitting me more, threatening me more, because they really want to know where the drugs are. Because drugs over there, even marijuana, is like 20 years. It's like it's a horrible thing to do over there. And they get into my apartment, and my tiny, cute little Pomeranian that was on that show I told you about, Eddie was his name, is his name. And he comes up to the door, and they start raiding my apartment, just like in the movies, ripping things apart, tearing things apart, right? And eventually they're starting to get more and more angry. There's no drugs. They pick up my dog, hold my dog, and look at me and look at him, and they say, "If you don't tell us where the drugs are, we'll kill your dog."
Wow, that's crazy.
Like John Wick stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I was having this out of body depersonalization, derealization moment. Like, how am I ever going to get out of what is this really happening? This can't be happening. The translator shows up and she says, "They're going to take you to jail. And in my experience, if you don't confess something, you're going to be in jail for a long time until your court date." She hands me a pamphlet. And in the pamphlet, it says what to expect when you're arrested in South Korea. And it's 2 pages long, and it essentially says they'll keep you here for a year until you confess something. You don't get a phone call, you don't get a lawyer. So that's exactly what happened. They put me in solitary confinement. They would do more bad things to me. And eventually I just made something up. I didn't know how long it was going to be. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how long I was going to be in there. I was scared out of my mind. So I made up something that I took something, and I had to give them, they went through my whole phone. I had to give them 5 names of people that were drug dealers. And I just made up 5 names of people that I knew that left the country, were never going to come back. Right. So they wouldn't get questioned. And then they let me go. They put a ban on my passport for 4 months, and my career was over. There's no Britney Spears comeback story in South Korea. You'll notice what a K-pop star has done, there's a reason why a lot of them commit suicide, is because your career is over. There's no bouncing back. You hear lots of news stories of other K-pop stars, accusations from an ex or whatever it may be, and then they just kill themselves because they know it's all over. And my career was over instantly.
Was your arrest in the news?
The news reporters showed up and they were interviewing me. They were trying to make a news story out of it to scare the populace, especially foreigners, from doing drugs. But I never saw an article that was published because 4 months later, it was revealed. I got a letter in the mail that said, "You're proven innocent. You're innocent, but get the heck out of our country." Right. So I left. I gave all of my belongings to an aspiring actor that was a good friend of mine. And that was it. It was all over. It was I don't have any connections back in Kentucky or anywhere in America. My life was there, right? And remember, the ego, just the size of a watermelon. I loved that life so much. Yeah. I had a suitcase. I had my dog, and that was what I went back to. My small town in America, I had to move back in with my parents, and to top it all off. And again, I'll get to the spiritual things that started happening, and this is all tying into that. But it was so profound. I went into the deepest, darkest, most intense depression that you can imagine, and my ego could not wrap around that wasn't my life anymore. And on top of that, there is no coincidences, I found out. But as right before the arrest, 2 days before, I had 12 metal implants put. I had crooked teeth, and I wanted to have perfect teeth. So I was going to be the face of a dentist company, a really famous one. And so they shaved off 12 teeth, did 12 root canals. They put in 12 crowns. It was supposed to be crowns. They were crowns, but they were banned neurotoxic crowns. that they put into my mouth, and it was driving me crazy. I mean, it actually changed neurologically. So I'm back in America with, and the reason they believed that I was a drug dealer, a little side note, is because when I was in the back of the van, I had these temporary crowns in. I was so nervous, I was biting them, and one of them fell out. I spit it out right into my hand, but they didn't know it was a crown. And they looked at me and they said, "Oh, methamphetamine. Why else would your teeth be falling out, right?" So I had neurotoxic crowns in my mouth, no money. They froze all my assets in Korea. All my assets are frozen. I have no money because it's all in South Korea and they won't let me get it. So, and a dog, and depressed beyond depressed. What do you do? I'm in the hole, and I'm in a small town again in Heroin County, Kentucky.
At first, I thought you had one of those vacation reincarnation lives, but then you went from there to a dark night of a soul.
Yeah, those are real too. There's vacation lives. It's like, oh, I want a good one. I felt like that, but it was really hard to get there. And then I got out of some serious poverty to get there. But yeah, you're right. It was like 5 years of like vacation life. And this is where the spiritual journey began and when it all started to make sense. I again, I was an investigative news reporter. You can't fool me, right? I always poke holes in things. You can't convince me of anything. And so for me to about to begin to tell you some of these spiritual things, please keep in mind, I used to make fun of these people. The woo-woo crowd, right? And all that, right? Okay, I made fun of them hardcore. There's no way you would ever been able to convince me of anything until it started happening to me. And that's what I'm going to get into here is after all that, eventually I got the teeth taken out, all the crowns. Instantly, my brain came back, right? Which I found out later was karma from a previous life. It was, and I felt this when it came forward. It was very obviously karma I was paying off, very, very brutal karma. And I'm going about my life trying to just find random odds and end jobs, trying to rebuild my life, just extremely depressed on my mind. And eventually, my sister dies of a heroin overdose, and my brother also died of opiates too. It's just where I come from. Okay, it's just a common story in Kentucky, unfortunately. In extreme depression, beyond depression, I just throw my hands in the air. I'll do anything to fix this brain. Okay, anything. And my friend says, he's the most spiritual person I know. I said, I don't understand life. What is all this nonsense? I want out. I became an antinatalist, which means you should not birth people because you know life is wrong. Why are you doing that to children? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I wanted out. I wasn't brave enough to kill myself. That's what it was. I just wasn't brave enough. I did not want to be alive. And I called my friend, a spiritual person, and I said, just how can I fix this brain? He said, come to Canada where he lives and we'll do a psychedelic journey. So I did. And the journey blasted me to the spirit realm. And I met my sister.
So are you saying you had an out-of-body experience?
Yeah. I wasn't in my body. I was in the spirit realm. And my sister, her spirit shows up. And this is the most powerful experience of my life up to that point. And she just, all these downloads of information come in, and it's just, she's like, that was my life, and it's okay. I'm good now, and I'm going to go back again. And I was so proud of her because she chose hard life to learn certain lessons. She didn't quite get the lessons. She didn't. It was to learn one of the hardest things ever, recovering from the most powerful drug in the history of mankind. And she spent 10 years trying to do it. She was about a year sober, and then one time it was all over. And I saw that. Like I went from my sister, the heroin addict, right? To man, my sister, the heroin addict. Like on the soul level, she expanded so much. Like, wow, oh my God. And I saw these souls being planted on earth. And I saw thousands of souls waiting to incarnate. Like, this experience is sought after. And the only way to have this experience here on planet Earth, right, is to be birthed. And so I went from being an antinatalist who says don't have kids to like, of course, the usher in the soul experience, you have to have kids. Oh, so I, just like that. Like, and I felt unconditional love like I'd never felt in my entire life. I get blasted back down. Okay. And like, what just happened to me? What was all that? Oh my God, that was real. And I asked my friend, what else can you tell me about spirituality? And he says, and this is where the story is going to get beyond, because psychedelics is one thing. That could have been just the psychedelic.
Right.
But then the things that are about to follow happened to me 100% sober and really, really happened. And it is very attainable for yourself and your entire audience. And this is where the pivot happens. He says to me, he says, well, I know he had been searching in his own journey for 4 years of the highest level spiritual people out there. Because let's be honest, there are levels to this spirituality game. There are all levels, right? Like, let's say the lowest level is a random guy on the homeless guy on the street is just yelling and whatever. He doesn't know maybe anything about spirituality. Let's just say that's the lowest bar. I nothing against being homeless, but you get what I'm saying, right? And let's say Christ is up here. So let's say 0 to 100. So there are levels to the game. It's not one is better than the other. It just is. It just is. Okay. And somewhere in the middle was this woo-woo people I would make fun of, love and light, right? Like I used to make fun of them. I don't anymore because I have no judgment anymore at all, which is great. And he says, I've been searching for the highest of the highest level people that are accessible, right? I found him. One of them is this Irish guy named Gareth, who used to be this entrepreneur, hardcore, drug using, bodybuilding Irish guy who one day at the gym has a thought. And the thought is everything that's happening out there is actually coming from inside. Oh, boom. And at the gym, he gets blasted in samadhi consciousness. And he comes back and he says, wow, what was that? I'm all in on that. He spends 10 years passing the hardest spiritual tests on earth, meditating hardcore, going to other high-level transmission people, blasting him with their energy and expanding his consciousness to the point to where within 10 years, he reaches Brahman consciousness.
All right, let's stop for a second. I need to go back and catch a couple words with you.
Okay.
First of all, you said he blasted into samadhi consciousness. What is that?
Great. That's a good question. I had no idea either. And so samadhi it's this profound state of meditation in which the individual experiences deep, blissful, and a unified state of consciousness. It involves like this complete absorption of the mind into a single point of focus, right? It leads to heightened state of awareness and profound spiritual realization. Right. In some traditions, it's described as a state of union with the divine or the ultimate reality. Right. It's when the ego dies, this human body thing, and what wakes up, what comes forth, is your true self with a capital S, your soul. Right. Like and all the information and awareness that comes with that. The Maya, this great illusion, disappears, and supreme knowledge comes forward as well. And I experienced that later as well, which I'll get into, but that was what happened to him at the gym. Eventually he reached Brahman consciousness, which is the highest state in a lot of traditions. Now, Brahman consciousness is basically the highest state. It is, you are one with everything. You are everything. You are one with everything. It is pure, unadulterated, preconceptual bliss, unconditional love, no karma, everything's cleared out, the highest state. Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, you can call it a lot of the different words in different traditions, and he's there. And my friend says, he's got a free meditation tomorrow, do the meditation. All right, I don't meditate. I never meditated. I thought it was nonsense. I'm on a Zoom call with him, okay? And he says, all right, there's only, back then he only had like 30 people. He might have like a couple hundred or something now, but back then he had like 30 people. And he says, all right, there's 30 people. I'm going to spend 2 minutes each. You're going to know when I'm on you. And I'm like, no, dude, whatever. So I close my eyes. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Nothing but thoughts. And then at about 40 minutes in, things can start to go silent. This divine light starts bursting through my closed eye visual. I'm then 2.5 hours in this meditation, and an alien shows up.
An alien shows up where? Like in your room with you or in your consciousness?
Oh no, it's just the consciousness shift. Yeah, it was like a consciousness shift, and he just appears, in my closed eye visual. I don't know what to say. He just appears, and he puts 3 fingers into my head, and he starts healing my brain. This depressed brain of mine, it starts healing, and it was just the most gentle feeling of all time. And then I come out of the meditation, and I'm like, wow, I don't know who this guy is. I need to go to his retreat. This guy is the answers I've been looking for. So I go to book the retreat. And my friend said there's one slot open at his retreat in Ireland. And I go and I pull up my laptop, and there's 3 alien fingerprints on my laptop.
What did the alien look
And it didn't
like?
go away for. It looked like your traditional, like it was like a silhouetted outline. But it had like, the big eyes, and it had like kind of like the head and the small body, kind of. But the fingers were very long, and that was the most unmistakable part. And the fingerprints, and I'm like, whoa, my goodness. All right, I don't know what's going on. I texted him and I say, hey, I just booked your retreat. I don't know who you are. I need to come. And he goes, I don't know about that alien thing. I'm not in cahoots with the aliens, but I'd be happy to have you. And I found out later that that was the divine orchestrator who can manifest things of the larger consciousness system, as Tom Campbell calls it, the universe God. Just put 3 fingerprints to ensure that this dude was actually going to go to that retreat. It needed that extra thing. And that happens in life. Those extra things that manifest to make sure that we do that thing, that our soul goes on that journey. Because maybe the alien would have showed up and I wouldn't have booked that ticket, right? I would have been, I don't know. That was a cool experience. I'm not going to Ireland. But when I see 3 fingerprints, 100%, right? And so the divine orchestrator put those 3 fingerprints to make sure I go. And then it all started. And then I go to his retreat, and for 7 days, never meditating before, I'm meditating in silence next to him and all of these extremely high level people who have powers that are like X-Men stuff. Like I can't even begin to describe. Shamans, but there's also like dentists there, and there was a chiropractor there, and there was a nurse, and there's normal people seeking spirituality who had crazy experiences who got led to this guy. And his protege, her name's Eva. She studied under him, hardcore spiritual person who eventually reached Brahman consciousness as well. And they have a podcast called Endless Possibilities. 2 people in Brahman consciousness talk. Like, what's the odds? It's so rare. And they have a podcast explaining life. It's amazing. And my Kundalini got awakened there, not by them, but somebody else had awakened my Kundalini. So I have a full-blown Kundalini awakening, middle of the retreat. I didn't know what Kundalini was. I thought it was a brand new at all this. I thought it was some Italian dish. They're like, hey man, your Kundalini just woke up. I'm pretty sure it just woke up. Like this energy is crazy running through my. I thought it was like, oh, Kundalini with that mozzarella, right? I thought it was an Italian. I didn't know what the heck it was. And now it's ravaging into my system. And it moves instantly up to my head, and it's been there ever since, clearing things out in a very punishing way. Okay. And anyways, so this retreat happens, and I start to realize high-level spiritual, really high level, who have access to lots of consciousness, they can clear out past life traumas. They can remove fears from you. They can like remove dark, dense things like that you can't get anywhere else, right? They could literally go in, and I'll give you an example. So I did a Zoom with Eva, okay? And I'll explain how to reach them like towards the end, but like I did a Zoom call with her. And she says, okay, Ken, I'm going to go into your consciousness. She goes she puts her fingers and her hands up like this. And this instant pummeling of light comes in. My energy is exploding in my head, moves down through my entire chakra system. And she begins to tell me 3 different times in my life when my fears got developed. She goes, oh, at the age of 12, I can see now that you fell off of a boat and you almost drowned, and this is why you're afraid of water. Don't worry, I'm helping that. That was true. She says, when you're 26 years old, you're in an Asian country, you drank too much and you almost died and you're afraid of dying then. And that was true. My girlfriend took me to the hospital and she said that. She doesn't know anything about me. And then she says, and at 33 years old, you have a really major problem. It looks like it's in your teeth. You thought you were going to die because something was happening with your brain and you thought you were going to die. And that was true. Like there are high level people that have access to consciousness that can tell you these things. And nobody knows about this, right? I didn't know about this. And they're really rare, but it's a tool to help you in spirituality. And they're just two that I know, but I'm sure there's others that are out there like that. And so Gareth does one thing. Gareth goes in and expands your consciousness so that you wake up. That's what he says. It just opens, whether it's through his YouTube videos or his group sessions or the free meditations, doesn't matter. They don't charge a lot of money either. That's the best part about meeting really high level people is they don't want your money because they have no egoic attachment to it. They charge just the basic amount to live. Her and Eva. They don't like have suits. They don't charge $5,000 for a date with destiny, right? Like that's not what they do. That's how you know that they're completely removed of every egoic attachment and that they're unconditional love. And every person at the retreat, I was surrounded by people that just wanted to become unconditional love in life as the ultimate goal, which is the ultimate goal. And so I'm just expanding left and right. And I come back from the retreat. I'm at my place in Denver. Kundalini is like ravaging my system, right? But I'm doing meditation. Now I meditate every day, right? And my soul is like, we can't do these vices anymore. No more of these. If I do the vice, either the Kundalini is going to mess me up or I just feel so incredibly bad. It's like Chantix. Chantix is that drug that you take that if you smoke, it makes you sick. Like Kundalini is basically like Chantix. Like if you do something bad as a vice, it'll mess you up. So you'll never want to do it again. So it's good and it's bad. And the energy from Gareth and Eva still working in my system is so strong. I go to sit down and meditate. I just got to meditate. It's just what I got to do. And when I do, I have a thought that I've never had before. And the thought was, everything is just energy. And when that thought happened, my consciousness was pulling. You can watch the video online. I don't know if you're listening to this at home, but like I'm pulling my hands apart and it's like, it's moving. That it's not a visual experience. It's a consciousness shift of deeper. And the ego died. And this slithering came forward up and to the front. And it was my samadhi experience. Samadhi happened to me. And I went from never meditating to just meeting these two people. And in 6 weeks, I'm in a state of consciousness that most monks that meditate their entire lives never reach. What is going on? But here's the beauty of it is the great illusion, the illusion of separation, all that falls apart. And you get this download of supreme knowledge of what your life is meant and why it all happened. Suddenly, this is why you were born into poverty. This is why your sister died. This is why you lasted just long enough in Korea to get a kids show, right? Because eventually it's all going to make sense. It doesn't make any sense right now, but there's a reason why your teeth happened exactly at that moment for the police to believe that. There's a reason why, and it all happened. And it all made sense. And the theme was, it was perfect.
So what is your purpose here?
It's the same purpose as all of us. And that is, as NASA physicist Tom Campbell says, is to grow up. You incarnate here. This is one of the tougher places in the universe to incarnate, right? And it's because this is a free will experiment that is being viewed by lots and lots and lots of other planets way out there and entities and people and all that, right? Because this is a free will experiment. And we are like the Navy SEALs of souls that come here to incarnate. This is where an insane amount of spiritual growth happens. Okay. And when my ego died, and when that spirit came forward, this was obvious beyond obvious. And this wasn't a psychedelic telling me that. I couldn't point to a psychedelic and say it was that. This was beyond obvious to me. And that feeling of that spiritual shift in consciousness was so overwhelmingly positive. And the meaning of life to come here as an individuated unit of consciousness, as God. So God has, let's play a little game here real quick, Jeff. Let's play with me here. God has all experiences, right?
Right.
Okay. That includes God not knowing God is God. So there's God knows God is God, and God doesn't know God is God. That's just all experiences, right? This is God not knowing God is God. This is the ultimate test, given all of the fears that exist in this world, given you as a prince in the year 1400, or as a podcast host, or as a homeless person, right? You come here to learn lessons given what you are. If it's your first incarnation, it's going to be really rough. It's like the first time playing Mario, you die a lot, you hit the turtles. You're not good. You play Mario 1,000 times, you get the game. You get the game and you're really good at it, right? And so when you die, whatever you learned, the rule is love, fear, duality, universe. Love is the most powerful force. The more times you choose love over fear in your life, the more your soul grows and the more that you grow. And actually, the better that your life becomes. And whenever you die, your whatever you gained in consciousness from those learnings gets stored in your oversoul, your soul, your individuated unit of consciousness, right? As Tonkin calls it. And then you get planted back down to learn the other lessons, right? That you're here to learn because you haven't learned them all. And if you are, let's say, out of 1,000, if you are 700, you play Mario 1,000 times, you understand the love over fear, you're really stoic and loving, and you don't know why. It's because you were 700 and you died, and you're planted as a baby as a 700, and you get the game, right? And so, which is why when Gareth, when he did a past life regression, or when he reached consciousness, he found out that he was like the number 2 at an ashram for a divine avatar in India. So it makes sense that his next life, he's obviously something's going to happen. The divine orchestrator is going to make sure that he meets the teacher or that he has a samadhi experience to blast him to help him become who he is now. Right? Does that all make sense?
Sure.
Okay. And that's what was shown to me. And then I started meditating for the next year. And I'll tell about one more state of consciousness that I've reached. I've left the Maya many times in meditation now.
What do you mean you left the Maya?
So the Maya is, the Sikhs, the Hindus, lots of religions and hardcore meditators have talked about the Maya as the great illusion, right? This is real, but it's also not real. It's very real. I mean, we feel pain and all that, right? It's very real, but we are living a multi-dimensional, multi-frequential life experience as a human, as a free will awareness unit, in order to develop self-mastery. And so in order for all that to happen, we have to have what appears to be reality. It's very real, but it is a metaphysical mirror. It's a very metaphysical mirror. And it's still real. Again, it's not real. It's a paradox. And again, this is all conceptual to you and to the audience, or maybe not to you, but to a lot of your audience, and it was to me. I've heard these teachings before in my studies. But when it moves into your experience, when you experience it, when you leave the Maya, like you're meditating, suddenly like you just leave the Maya, an illusion, and you get what all the ancients were talking about. You get what Christ was talking about. You get what Buddha was talking about, right? And when samadhi happened, it's like, I get it, right? I get it. But one thing I still didn't get was the whole separation of illusion. And I think that this is really going to take it home for your audience of what I mean by experiential. I was meditating in San Diego and processing a lot of karma. And eventually I was clear to that karma, and I entered this really stoic state of bliss, right? And I was sitting and laying in this bed, and I could hear the people outside in the hallway. And when they were moving around, and I heard the baby crying, and I was in such a deep meditation, the illusion of separation melted away. I was the baby. I was the father. I was the pilot outside on the plane overhead. And I was in that state for 30 minutes. I was in unity consciousness for 30 minutes. And it was the most, here's what it feels like. It's like this. It's like you're a tree. Or it's like you're a leaf. And you're like looking around your whole life. Who are these leaves? What are all these leaves doing? Like, this branch is always moving. I hate this tree. I don't have any independence. I'm always like, and then suddenly you zoom out and you realize I was never a leaf. I was the tree, right? It's like that. It's like this zoom is a consciousness shift of, oh, I'm not Ken and you're Jeff. We're all one. We're all one. Like, what? And it's this big face palm. You're like, oh my, how did I ever believe the illusion? That's what it's also meant by the Mayas, this illusion that we're separate. We're not. And so that's why I can't judge people anymore, because I'm judging myself. It doesn't make any sense. They're just on a different soul journey.
Earlier, you were talking about love and fear. What is the best way to break the cycle of fear and move towards love?
Man, that is such a good question. And, so by the way, this all started a year ago, about a year and 3 months ago. So even though it's all new to me and I've had these really wild experiences and I've studied it vociferously for a year, I might not have all of the answers, but I can say this. What I've learned from when you get access to these people, the support is so amazing, right? When you're surrounded by people who are truly unconditional love and full of no nonsense and really want to help and support you, is such a beautiful refresher. Oh, it is so much better than any of the acting thing, any of the contacts I've made, all the fake conversations, all that. It is so much better than that. And one of the things that I hear from them, as well as the other shamans and sages that I've been meeting, as well as Tom Campbell, who I've now met, and that is that you have to change at the being level. And one thing is that they'll say something like, oh, I love you, right? It's another when someone looks you in the eyes and says, I love you. Like that comes from deep in. That's the being level, right? That's the being level. And so, but we're all up to our neck in fears, right? We just don't let the world know about it, right? Especially now on social media. We never let the world know, right? But we respect authenticity, but at the same time, we don't show the world our true authentic selves. But when somebody does, it's like, wow, thank God someone's saying that. And the fears are one way to do it, which I love sharing on this podcast, is that there are high-level shamans out there that can clear that out for you. Because you've got your mental body, your physical body, and your pain body, or your mental, your physical, and you got 3 bodies, right? Again, see, I'm still relatively new, but and they can get access to the other energy bodies and just pull things out for you. And it can help remove them. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another way is to genuinely try to change, because whenever you choose love over fear, that when that person cuts you off, you can practice meditation. That's why you meditate, is to keep that stable ground to keep you centered with your true self, which doesn't get angry, because you're unborn and you never die. And your true self, this is just a temporary body, but your true self would never get angry because it doesn't have emotions like that. It's only pure unconditional love. And when you meditate, you access that more and more. It's not about stopping thoughts. It's about getting access to that self with a capital S. Okay. And so when you can do that, then your fears disappear. I've literally felt them melt away like ice, and they don't come back. Whether it's with Eva and Gareth pulling those things out of me and healing me, or when you meditate and you somatically release it, you focus, like, a lot of trauma is stored around the hips, and I just somatically truly let it go, right? Just be completely relaxing, letting it bubble forward, not judging it. And it somatically will just work its way out like ice melting and dissipating. But it's like hacking a sequoia with a hatchet, right? I mean, there's a lot that's in there. There's a lot that's in there. And so it's a mixed method of those three things: meditating, high level shamans that can help you, and somatically releasing. That's how, and then facing your fears, like literally going out and taking action against your fears. We all know what they are, right? We all know what they are.
What is your method of meditating?
When I meditate, I usually have, because I'm a guy that's all about being fast, right? I want the results now, and that's a patience thing I got to work on. But I will have a video. I'll either meditate with Gareth Evo or some other shamans that have free meditations or their group meditations where they're transmitting their energy into you, which expands your consciousness. Okay. And so I'll do that. So I'll either meditate with them silently. It's all silent. Have their energies working in me. So it's like a double fold. So that's happening while I'm also meditating. Or if I don't have that available, if I don't have the videos available, I will sit and I will meditate, and I will always just bring it back to that. Again, I've got a little bit of experiential reference point, what the true self feels like, but you can get that when you just sit and let whatever comes up, comes up. You don't try to control those thoughts. You just like let it go, and eventually it just exhausts itself, right? And this, it's like a muscle. You have to absolutely practice it. You have to. And you have to do it every day. But when you do it, your life just gets better. It's not about decreasing stress. That's a great thing that happens, right? But your love goes like, your judgment goes way down. And then you get to experience consciousness shifts that Dr. Gary Weaver studied consciousness shifts and psychedelic experiences Dr. Gary Weaver, and he analyzed it and he asked the people, how does this rank as far as experiences in your life? Consciousness shifts and psychedelic experiences, especially like monks that have reached like Brahman consciousness or samadhi or whatever it may be, self-realization. It's ranked as the single most significant event of their life and the single greatest feeling. Number 2 is sex. Okay. And so it would have significantly even more than that as an experience. And so when you can get that into your experiential data set, I'm telling you, it was a guy that was a womanizer that did all that stuff and had the fame and did all the things. I'm telling you, and your audience, it's so much more better when you can experience the true self. It is an order of magnitude better to where my goal now is to become unconditional love. Like, talk about a 180 shift, Jeff. Right? It's just that much better.
Well, I was wondering, what are you doing with your life now that you're out of acting?
Yeah. So I studied mathematics and business, and wasn't like a dum-dum, even though I was an actor in South Korea on a kid show. What I did was I got with the developer, and I was trying to tell my story. I was trying to write a book, and I realized that I couldn't write a book. It was taking too long. I didn't know how to write a good book, even though I was a news reporter. I didn't know the rules. And so I got with a developer, and I made a team, and I got an investor, and we are building now this platform to help people tell their stories. So anybody can tell their stories. And it's like it's in a prototype stage. It's not officially out yet. It's called DreamScribe. And what it is it was going to be like audio integration. So you can just speak if you can't really type well, or if you have an idea on the go. We help guide you with success metrics of what goes in, help you pull out that book out of you. All the deep questions that need to be asked, and keeps asking you so that you do the writing. There's a lot of modern tech, and especially AI writing, that's replacing the writers, right? Like it's nonsense. It's taking the creative element out of it. We have an ethical tech company that is helping people actually tell their stories, because we don't want any more stories to go to the grave. And we want anybody to be able to write their story, whether it's a biography or a fiction novel. And so we're building a platform that helps people do that. It makes it efficient and makes it affordable. It's called DreamScribe. I guess I can link it. I can link it down there.
I can put a link in the description.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't come on the promote, but I mean, yeah, And again, we haven't officially built it out yet, but we do have a waiting list if people are interested in writing a book and getting all of those things out of them to write a good book. I'll put a link in the description. And I also wanted to, if this is okay, some of these people that helped me along the way, I've got a good list of people that are unconditional love, that do not charge a lot of money, if anything at all, that can help expand the audience's consciousness. And it's worth at least testing out. And maybe I can either throw that into like a talk or somewhere in the description, or maybe on my website. I can throw that up if that's okay.
Maybe you can create a link tree to all these people, or put it on your website, and then I can put a link to your website, and then they can find all those other people.
Let's do that. And you can see more of my work or what I did in Korea to kind of see what I did. And there's a lot of humor on the site too. It's pretty funny. But yeah, I'll have a list there of some of these people that helped me. Maybe I'll put up a description of what they do and how they can help you.
What is the name of the website?
Oh, yeah. It's called take10ken.com. So, like take 5 minutes is take 10. So take10ken.com. There'll also be, you can sign up for the Dream Scribe waiting list there as well. And then, yeah, so that's a great way to see the work that I did. And, that's how you can reach me too, if you have any other questions. But
you have a contact page on your website?
Yeah, there's a contact page on the website if you guys want to reach out to me. I say that's probably the best way to reach me. And my Instagram handle is _American, which is American, Ken. So if you guys want to reach out to me on Instagram, you can there. But yeah, I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity to come on. And I'm a guy who, from nowhere, Kentucky, didn't know a thing about spirituality. And now it's my entire life. And I've experienced it. And I can't wait to see where it goes. And I think what you are doing now with your podcast is you have been creating something that has been a huge part of this monumental shift in the consciousness of the planet, and of this love over fear, helping more people understand, one, what life is, what I saw in my Samadhi experience, and also like getting people conceptually to understand what life is, by bringing on people who have experientially had that. And that is so incredibly important, Jeff. I cannot tell you how much I've loved this podcast and how much it's been an instrumental part of my confusing days right early on. And what you're doing is an absolute gold mine for humanity. And I can't thank you enough for what you do here. Like, truly, you're a high-level soul, my friend. And it's beautiful work that you do.
Well, thank you. And again, none of this would be possible unless people like you came here and shared your experience. So the thanks goes to you, not me.
Spoken like a man of true love.
In the beginning, I said that you witnessed yourself planning out your life pre-birth.
Yeah. It wasn't a pre-birth. It wasn't a pre-birth experience, but I did see how that happens. And here's kind of how it works is, it's like you're up there in between lives, and you'll have somebody kind of guiding you, right? It's somebody that's familiar with you, right? It's somebody that, oh, it's Uncle so-and-so, or it's whoever it may be, right? It's a familiar, because there's this decompression phase after you die. It's like, okay, it's a little bit of confusion. It's the jacket of your meat suit has been discarded, a little bit of confusion. Oh, there's somebody that's going to comfortably guide me into this in between lives. Oh, okay, there it is. Okay. Oh, hey, okay. Okay. And then what they do is go through a plan. You can take a break, right? And you can take a break if you want, or you can choose the next life. And the next life is usually, I didn't really get that anger thing, right? In my sister's case, it was, I didn't get the getting over the addiction thing. And that's kind of how I felt with that, right? I didn't get over I shouldn't have been. I really tried, but I didn't get it. And it's like you plan out the next one, but the larger consciousness system does not want. It wants to fight entropy, because it's the growing organism to infinity. And He doesn't want to fail. And so it wants to set you up, right? There's no judgment. It's not like, very bad sister heroin thing. It was, or for me, when my Samadhi experience, it wasn't like, oh, very bad. You drank too much in South Korea and you did all these promiscuous things. It wasn't like that at all. And in the way that I had seen it when I was up there, it was like this revelation of people getting reincarnated in a way that sets you up for a better chance, a probabilistic chance of being successful. So maybe instead of being born into extreme poverty to get over addiction, maybe this time around we're going to put you in a better home, and then the addiction will come later. And you just need a supporting father this time around, right? Because it doesn't want you to be set up for failure the next time around. It wants to continually have you progress towards success. And Tom Campbell lays this out in all of his videos online. He's an enlightened NASA physicist who wrote a book called My Big Toe, TOE, Theory of Everything. So if you want to know really what life actually is all across the spectrum, it's a very dense book. It's very mathematically dense, but watch his YouTube videos. Tom Campbell's really great at that. My Big Toe, Theory of Everything explains it. But yeah, that's what it is there's a semi-plan that is kind of part of this, but it's all set up for success. It's not like we're punishing you, so we're going to make you a homeless person this time around. There's karma that comes in from the previous life. But when you die, if you're 700 out of 1,000, if 1,000 is enlightenment, you're born again as a 700. You don't lose it. And that's why when you're born, that's why we call it old souls. If you're born, you're like, I don't know why. I didn't like that drinking thing. I don't know why I forgive people so easily. I can't explain it. I'm like 10. I don't get along with all these other people. You hear this from all these like high level shamans and these people that are unconditional loves. They're like, in my childhood, I didn't know. It's because they were 999 out of 1,000. They died. They come back as a baby. That's 999 out of 1,000, right? And so that's how it works. And that's what was revealed to me. And that's also, again, Tom Campbell, Brahman consciousness people, that's what they tell me. And so I only can grasp things that are my experiential data set, and conceptually is a cross-section of all of the highest people that are out there. Because in business, they say, never trust a poor man's opinion on how to get rich. And it's the same in spirituality and everything in life. I only trust the people that have been there, right? That have been there. Near-death experience people, they've been there, right? Brahman consciousness, they're there, right? They're there right now, right? And not the people that are on the pulpit screaming at you and telling you about some book that's been mistranslated 50,000 times, right? But the actual source of the people that do the things, a cross-section of the people, right? That's what I believe. Also my experiential data set, and that's what I've been telling you today. So this is all a result of that cross-section.
After any of your spiritual awakening experiences, did you notice that you had any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Yeah. I didn't ask for them. It just happened. It just comes. And this is a result, again, of the transmissions. It's not just even Gareth. There's other people that transmit their energies into you. And I was doing several transmissions, and I had reached other states of consciousness that I didn't talk about here, but I started to develop psychic abilities to where I'm in meditation, and now I can call in Christ consciousness. Okay. And the real Christ message was written in a book called The Christ Letters. And the Course in Miracles is amazing as well. But the Christ Letters is, when I read that, the second I started reading it, because people don't know this either. I didn't know this either. Like the Bhagavad Gita and all of these high level texts, you get a transmission when you read it. When I read Gareth's book, he wrote a book called Waking Up from the Dream. When I was reading it, I was getting his transmission, and things were happening to me. The energy gets transmitted through YouTube videos, through the writing. And I was reading the Christ Letters, and I'm just deeply getting sucked in. I closed the book, and the message, Christ consciousness, comes down to me. And then the Divine Mother herself. I was born and raised Catholic. Again, this was familiar to me. And this is what the larger consciousness will show you. It will show you things that are familiar to you. So a guy in India would have seen something probably different. But who's this Mary person? This doesn't make any sense. Mary herself. I'm not making this up. This only happened one time. Mary herself appears for about 7 seconds with colors I've never seen before, and a glimmering that I've never seen before. because as Shannon Christie, one of my favorite shaman friends, has told me, she said, you could not connect with the Buddha thing. You're on this Hindu Buddhist path, but your heart was born Catholic. You were super obedient to the Mary and Christ. That's where your heart rests. And suddenly, after she told me that, I go to Catholic church now. I don't believe in the dogma, but I get so much spiritual energy from that. And after I read the Christ letters, start reading Christ letters, and she appears to me, and my heart chakra is exploding, and I'm filled with love like I haven't. Oh, it's so beautiful. And this is another message: is that, you know, all roads lead to Rome. I didn't get that before. Now I kind of do. I mean, you get rid of the dogma, all the religions are kind of the same at their core, right? Unconditional love, there's intent, and intent means a lot. And so I reconnected with Catholicism, which I grew to hate in my adult life and curse, forgive me the fear of hell. Now I go to church every Sunday to reconnect with Mary. My background on my phone is the Virgin Mary, and I've got Christ and Mary images all over my place. And the most powerful picture and most prized position of my life is from a Marian chapel of Mary of Medjugorje that I put on my head as I meditate, and I can feel the energy blasting me through and sucking me deep into meditation and opening up my heart. Does any of this make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, don't curse these other religions, right? Like, there's an Amazonian jungle group of people that worshiping some god. If it's loving intent, and especially if it's powered by a collective, it's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of, and I had some bad things happen. I was possessed by a demon, because you open up your energy centers, you got to protect them. I didn't know that. Full on poltergeist level demonic experience.
How did you get rid of the demon?
Great question. I went to the Catholic Church, and I felt the cross. Like, it was, I was, lights were changing in the room. I was vomiting nonstop. I started picking up bad old habits, vices, thought forms were being taken over. I was shaking uncontrollably. I had some of my shaman friends that tried to remove it. They saw it. It didn't happen. They couldn't do it. It was powered by a collective. I went to the Catholic Church, and they put the cross on me, and I felt the spiritual blast go through me, and I thought it was done, and it wasn't. So I had 3 exorcisms, and that didn't work. You know what I did? I texted Eva. Mm-hmm. I texted Eva, and I said, Eva, I think a demon's on me. Please. Okay. I'm like still going crazy. And about 9 hours later, I just feel it blasting out of me, and I'm back to normal. All the blood comes back to my face. I'm like, oh my God. And I check my messages, and it's from Eva. She left me an audio, and she said, she's Austrian. She goes, Ken, I saw the demon on you, and in between healing sessions, I just removed it. It tried to come on me, but it can't do anything to me. So I put it in another dimension. You're fine now. That's how powerful she is. And there's other people out there that are like her. I haven't met them yet, but there's power in the astral, and some people have that. And if you want to expedite your spiritual journey, don't just sit around and meditate. Do it by blasting with the transmission energy. Meet these high level people that can help you, who are centered in unconditional love. It's really important. You'll know when they are too. You'll know why they're following, whether they are or not, and whether they're wearing a Rolex watch and how much money they're charging, and whether they can pull a demon off of you from 18,000 miles away in 3 minutes when 5 other shamans and 3 priests couldn't do it. So there are levels to this game, circling back. And yes, I did develop some psychic powers, and they're still coming in, and I'm still trying to grasp it all. I'm only 1 year and 3 months into this. And so I'm doing my best, but thank God I've got the right people supporting me.
What are your own personal spiritual goals for the future?
That's a really good question. You know, when you say when the ego says things like, I want to reach Brahman consciousness, that's enlightenment is already here. It's already here. And when I had that samadhi experience, it was shown to me. It's been here all along, right? And when I left the Maya in my meditations before, it was this big face palm of, oh, stupid. How did I ever believe the illusion. Like, oh my God. And it's always there. Yourself, your true self with a capital S is always there. You are unborn and you never die. That which exists by its very definition cannot not exist. And so the fact that you exist means you've always existed, and you can never not exist. And so, and by the way, hell is not real, number one. So, and two, no fear. I want to quell any fears of your audience, but like, what happens when I die? Like, am I going to go to nothingness? No, no. Like, just by its very definition, and Bashar talks about this too. He says existence cannot be non-existence just by its very definition. So you don't suddenly become non-existent. That's not real. You've always existed and you always will. You're eternal, a pure 100% awareness. And so my spiritual goals are to get to the point to where I am pure awareness. I want to become unconditional love. I want to get rid of my fears. I want to help more people practically understand spirituality. And everything that I've talked about. And I really want to be a beacon of the opposite of what I was before, whatever that is, which is non-judgmental, loving, because as a lot of NDE people say, it's like one act of love is it crushes a million of bad acts, right? And thought forms also manifest, and the power of thought and intent is way beyond anything that we could ever imagine. And so it's to control my thoughts and eventually get to the point to where I am my pure self, my true self. Some of these people that went to Garrett's retreat that are my friends now, they're in self-realization. They're in unity consciousness. I know 3 that are going to be entering into Brahman more than likely. And they describe to me what their experiences are like. I knew them before, and I know what they're like now. And they're just like, it's all melting away. And I want to have my densities, my fears, and my judgments and self-hatred, and I want all that to melt away so that I can become love and grow up. That's what I want.
Ken, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I want to circle back to you are the Navy SEALs of souls. You can go incarnate on some easier places. Okay, you can. It's an option. Okay, your soul, your true self, capital S, incarnated here because it's particularly hard. So pat yourself on the back, because we kind of take it for granted that there's all these horrible things that we see on the news and things that happen in our life, and there's pain, right? And there's anxiety and there's depression and we got to die and there's all these things that we take for granted. It's like, it's just life. That's what we say. That's life, right? But pat yourself on the back, ladies and gentlemen, because you are one of billions of souls that chose to be here to live out an extremely difficult experience, to have the most evolutionary soul growth that you can possibly imagine. So by default, you are a Navy SEAL hero and envy. There's no envy, but like envy of souls. And you're expanding beyond belief. And the only way to actually understand this is to get into these deep meditative states, get these spiritual, not have me tell you, but like get it into your experiential data set. And now you have a way of doing that. And you're going to see it, and you're going to see that true self. And when that comes forward, your life will change like it never, you cannot even imagine how it's going to change. And it's going to be the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to you.
Ken, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me on and for everything that you do, my friend. Truly.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.